Hello and welcome to Love Anything Art. Today I'll show you how I made this painted polymer clay bead bracelet. I'm going to begin with some beige colored clay. You can use any brand and any color you really want to use. I picked this because it was a neutral color. And then I have some stick pins and a tissue blade for cutting. Just go ahead and cut off a nice big section of this clay. Put that aside, scoop away my little mess here, and then go ahead and condition my clay a little bit before rolling it. I have it into a nice ball, and then I'll just give it a nice gentle roll. I want to make it into a long tube or snake shape. And then on each of the ends, I do want to taper them out so that they are thinner on the sides than they are in the middle. And this will be making it so that my beads go from big, thick beads to thinner beads. And I want to make sure that it fits around my wrist, and it does. That's perfect. I'm going to go ahead and make little notches in the clay so that I can measure out the sizes of my beads before going back and fully chopping them. And continue all the way down your snake of clay. And then the fun part, go ahead and start rolling them all into nice little perfect balls, or as perfect as you can get them. And after I've done that, I have let the beads sit here for about a day. That's because I ran out of time. But you can put yours in the freezer just to form them up a little bit. And with each of those, just place them on the metal stick pins. Just giving them a nice gentle push on there. Make sure you give it a nice roll so that the hole inside is nice and cut through. And then take it off, flip it over, and press it in the other way, and this will give you a better shaped bead. Just continue with all of your beads, and I'll probably place 2 or 3 beads on each of my stick pins, depending on the sizes of the beads. You do want to leave a space in between the beads so that they are not touching. After I've done that, my beads did collect a little bit of lint and hair, so I'm going to take some rubbing alcohol. Actually, this is expired, so it's perfect. I can use it for my art projects. Go ahead and place a little bit on the end of a Q-tip, and then just start wiping away all those little nasties that get stuck to your pretty clay. You know, no matter how hard you try, you cannot keep clay clean. You just can't. And then I made this accordion file piece of paper just by folding it up, back and forth, back and forth. And this is what I will use to bake my beads so they don't go rolling all over the place. It's time to bake. After baking, you can leave your beads on your little accordion file so they don't go rolling all over the place. And keep them on the stick pins throughout the project until the end. I have some nice cheap paints. You can pick them up at Walmart or the dollar store. Any old paints will do. You can do this project, I promise you. And some water and a very thin paintbrush. And then also some varying pens with very, very small tips on them. You'll want different colors for outlining. These are optional. You do not have to have these. With this first one, I'm going to show you a few different ways on how to make some flowers. So on this first one here, I'll just kind of roughly, very roughly, outline the shape of my flower petals. Does not have to be perfect. See, it does not look perfect. And then you'll just take whatever color you want and then just start filling in the center. And at this point, I will kind of start to adjust the flower petals to make them more symmetrical. Putting the outline on there just kind of gives you a nice rough outline to keep everything in semi-order here. And also the ink from the pen is not completely dry, so it kind of blends with the paint and it gives it a darker tone to it, as you can see here. And then that allows me to go back in with the wet paint after it's dried and then just fill in just the center part of each of the flower petals so that I have a nice pretty outline sectioning off each of the petals. Kind of like the way it turned out. I have a couple of other ways to make these also. You can decide which way you want to use, and then you could do all of them like I will too. And there you go. You can let that dry. And then I have another way. You can take a dry Q-tip, dip it in your beautiful color that you want to use, and then just dab that right on the clay. And you can have a nice little round petal. And then just make several more of those all around to make your flower. And this is a 4-petal flower. After it dries, you can put a dot in the middle of a different color for the center of your flower. And on this purple one, I did do the same thing with the Q-tip. And then I'm just going to go ahead and outline it. And this will help you see the different flower petals. But again, this is totally optional. You can just leave it the way it was. Once that has all dried, go ahead and place in your center flower piece there. And that is that. And you can also go back through there and lighten it up a little bit by placing just a little dab of some wet paint on there, and then let it dry, and you'll have your outline that way too. And now I'm going to make a bumblebee, and you can do this 2 different ways too. I'll show you the second way later on. Just take a little bit of yellow paint and just make 2 little small pill shapes on your clay, and then separate those by 2 little black pill shapes. That's your bumblebee body. And then you can use some white paint and make your little wings. Make it thin on the end that's going to touch your little bumblebee, and then press down harder with your brush and pull out to make a thicker mark towards the end. And then you can make little dashes with the pen. You can also do this with paint on the paintbrush, but it might be a little bit more difficult. And this will make those little cartoonish zoom lines behind your bumblebee, just like in Winnie the Pooh. And then just continue that all the way around the bead, doing as many loops as you would like. And that is my little bee bead. And then I'm going to make some butterflies to make that little body part of the butterfly. I'm just going to take whatever color and make a thick line, and then make it taper down into a thinner line. And you just do that by applying more pressure at the thicker points and then a lot less pressure on the thinner points. And then to make the wings, you can just start with a little circular dot and then work your way towards the body of the butterfly and make it go thinner as it gets closer to the body. And make a second one right below that for the bottom of the wing. And you can get as fancy as you would like with this, and you could put dots on it and lines and whatever you want. But it's Winnie the Pooh, and Winnie the Pooh is basically pretty simple. You'll make one on each side, and the hardest part about this is making the second one match, but you can do it. I know you can. And it'll be better for you because I'm sure your hands won't be as shaky as mine are. I cannot help those shaky hands, but I do my best. And then you can just make them as full and thick as you want once you have your basic shape on there. Next, I am going to make a little honey pot. This one is a little bit more tricky than the other ones, but it's still very basic shapes. For this first part, I'm just going to make kind of an oval shape that kind of dips down in the middle at the top, or kind of looks like a clown mouth too, in a way. If you were to put a line right there in the center, it would kind of be like, you know, the paint all around the clown's mouth. I'm sorry for you folks that don't like clowns. They are kind of scary though. You just keep working that in there, starting with a small shape in the middle, and then just kind of make the shape bigger and bigger and bigger as you go out. And then I'm going to start making the top part come to more of a point on just that top corner on each side. And then I will move on to my next color once I've finished that one. And for this, I'm going to make the bottom half of the jug or jar of honey. You'll start on one side at the bottom of the orange color and continue working your way across until you reach the other side. And you'll want this to be the thickest part of your jug. And then from here, it'll taper down towards the bottom so that it gets closer and closer to form that bottom part of it. The bottom part of jugs are usually thinner or smaller and taper off as they get closer towards the bottom. And then you can put your little flat base on there. Fill in all of the areas in between with as many coats as you would like of your paint. And with that same color, I'm going to make a little round top. Just fill in the circle. And of course, if you do mess up, you can always take the other color and paint over it, because that is the beauty of paint. And then I'm going to put a little line or dash there at the top for the little handle on the jug. And to make it look like the orange clay is kind of wrapping around that lid, I'm going to take there right at the top and place in a little bit of orange paint. And it kind of looks like it's hugging it or wrapping around towards the back side of the jug. And then to give it some definition, I'm going to take one of those markers and start outlining the outside of the jug. This is totally optional, but I think it does add quite a bit to the jug, or pot of clay, if you will. And then if you mess up, you can always take that paint and cover up any of your little boo-boos. Easy peasy. And then for the top of the butterfly, once it's dried, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 little dashes up there for the antennas on the butterfly. And again, just like the bumblebee, I'm going to make little dash marks for the zoom lines to give the butterfly some motion. I'll add in a little whoop-de-whoop here and a whoop-de-whoop there, and it's done. For a second way to do a bumblebee, just use your Q-tip, dip it into your paint, and apply your yellow and black dots. And then you can finish it out with your wings and your little zoomy zoom lines. And this is a second way you can do a bumblebee. Easy. Now to make my little piglet, I'm taking some white clay and a very small dash of red clay and mixing it until I get the color of Piglet's body. And I do have some pictures over on my phone to the left that I am looking at to compare the colors so that I can make sure that I get pretty similar colors to what Piglet has. And to make his face, I'll just kind of start with making an oval shape. Very thin at first, and then make it wider and wider until it is as wide as I need it to be. Almost becomes a circle. And you can fill that up with as many layers as you want to get it coated on your bead. And then I will start making little cheeks for him. So I'll make it wider right there in the center of that oval on each side for his little poofy cheeks that he's got. They're kind of bony actually, but they poke out a little bit. Now to make the ears, they are a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a little bit more red clay to get it a nice darker pink color. And then on the side of his head, just put a little dot of the pink, make a circle, and then just make a little whoop-de-whoop come out there for a tail. Going thinner, applying less pressure with your brush as you go out. And then you'll just do the same on the other side. He's got 2 ears, you know. And there you go. It's pretty easy, right? And then you'll just want to put in his little nose. And it's kind of a triangle shape. And for his eyes, I'm going to use a pen. And then I'll put in 2 little dashes above that for the eyebrows. And then again for his mouth, you can just make your little line. And then kind of make 2 little dashes on each side. And those are like his little dimple lines. And then he has this little line on his chin, kind of like a little cleft chin in a way. And then, like he's smiling, you're just going to put 2 little lines, one under each of his eyeballs there, and then connect the nose, going up the bridge of his nose by making a line in between his eyes, and then make that go around his nose too. And you don't have to do this part, but I am going to go ahead and outline around the outside of his head and his ears to frame him in. And that is Piglet. Now, Eeyore. I have a soft spot in my heart for Eeyore. I'm a lot like Eeyore. We're gonna make his color by taking some of this beautiful purple and adding in a nice generous amount of this light blue color. Again, I am looking at pictures off to the side to get my colors correct on my Eeyore. Eeyore's face is kind of broken up into a top and bottom portion. The top part here is going to be his signature blue color. And I'm going to make a little circle, kind of lopsided a little bit. Right there at the top, fill it out with his little dome, and then on each of the sides, make it come down to a point, being sure to leave a circle there in the center. That is where his mouth will be. Kind of looks like a bib in a way. And then his ears are going to poke out there right at the top. I'll just use some more of that color I made and apply a good amount of pressure at the top and then less pressure as I get towards the outer end of the ear. And I'll do the same to the other side also. Again, applying less pressure as you get towards the bottom so it thins out. And to make his bottom part of his face, I'm using some white and mixing in a very small amount of this brown clay just to kind of get that tannish color that is the bottom of his face, where his mouth will be. And then I feel like it needs a little bit of yellow in there just by looking at the picture. Again, I just keep mixing my colors up here until I get the tone of his face. It does not have to be perfect either. Once I have that color correct, I'll just go ahead and start applying that to the bottom of his face, directly below the top part of his head. And this is a circle that we'll be making here at the bottom. Being sure to kind of tuck it out and under that blue portion of the top of his head. And then continue down, finishing out the circle for the bottom part of his face. He looks a bit funky now, but he's gonna be beautiful. And I'm gonna make his little black tuft of hair just by making one stroke of my brush at a time, making each individual tuft of hair. Again, if you mess up, you can always take some of that blue and fix any mistakes that you make. Just take it slow and easy and make your brush one stroke at a time. Again, applying pressure towards the middle of the head, working your way out towards the outer part, making thinner strokes as you work your way out. And he does have this line down the center of his face. I'm going to use some black, a very thin line with my paintbrush. And then he has a couple little cross lines that go on his top part of his face too. And once I reach that tan part, I'll make my other last mark. And then I'll make his eyebrows, just little dashes right below his hairline, And then he has kind of like forehead wrinkles. I'll make a tiny one above each of the eyebrows. And then I'll continue that line down his face using some brown clay on the tan colored part of his face. And he does have a smile, if you will, that goes from one side of that tan color, right below the blue, all the way around to the other side, directly below the blue. With a line right there at the top of each of them to finish out his smile. And again, he has some of those little stitch lines on his nose area there. And then he has little nostrils. Make a little dash, thicker on one side, thinner on the other, applying less pressure as you get towards the thinner part. He's already coming together. Look at him. Oh, he's so cute. And then you're gonna put in his little whites of his eye. Just take some white paint and make a little dot on there and make it kind of become a circle. Easy, easy. And again, I just know your hands are gonna be steadier than mine. That's how I know you can do this. And I'm going to take some black paint and make a little dot there for his pupils and his iris. He's got very dark, beautiful eyes. Aw, he's so cute. And then I'm going to take some bright purple, and it's going to make a nice little contrast in there for that inner flap of his ear. It's going to be thicker at the top and thinner towards the bottom. And again, if you mess up, you can always paint over your little boo-boos. You'll put that purple on both sides of his ear. And that is Eeyore. He's a little bit more complicated than Piglet, but you did it. Now for Pooh. Take some yellow, and then we're going to take a very little bit of brown clay and start mixing it in there to get his signature golden honey colored Pooh fur. And this is the color I came up with. I think it's pretty close. I'll just go ahead and start putting on his little old noggin just by making a round bubble. Pooh has a very round face. And then I'm gonna make his little like eyebrow, how it kind of juts out a little bit. It comes out kind of to a point, like right off the side of his head. Again, I'm looking at a picture of him. Almost like a little cliff for his eyebrow. That's where his eyebrow will set in a moment. And then I'm just kind of finishing out my circle and perfecting it a little bit. And then making the circle puff out a little bit right below that cleft, because that is where his little cheekies are gonna be. Oh, he's got such cute little cheeks, you just want to pinch him. Oh, shaky hands, but we're gonna do this. I'm gonna put in his ears, one on each side. It's kind of just a little round or ovalish kind of a shape. He has one on one side, and then of course, an ear to match on the other side. And that will go right there above that cliff that will be his eyebrow area. I'm going to use some black paint and give his face an outline. before continuing. I will place in his eyebrow on one side. And as promised, the eyebrow on the other side. And he does kind of have a little bit of thicker eyebrow on one side than he does the other. I'm gonna kind of visualize where I want the center part of his face to be, where that nose is gonna come out. And then I start making my mark on there once I have that kind of visually on there to make his nose area there. And then just start placing in kind of a triangle or heart shape. And then below that, make the line for the mouth. With a little line on the side there to show that he is smiling, because Pooh is always smiling. And then make your little dot where you want his eyeballs to be. You can always make the dot bigger. Just start with a small dot and work your way to the size that you feel looks best on little Pooh's face. And that's Pooh's face. Pretty easy. I'm just going to place in a little bit of red paint at the bottom, and that is for his signature red shirt that he just loves to wear, and I think he has 365 of them, so he has one for each day of the year. And again, I will take some black paint and begin my outlining of his shirt. Not making this detailed at all for the shirt, just make it whatever. You don't even have to put the shirt on there. But I think that it makes you realize that that is Pooh with his red shirt. Again, if you mess up, which I did, you can go back and fix it up by applying the correct color of paint. And that is my little Pooh. Once I have finished all of my beads with all of my characters, butterflies, bees, and flowers, I can move on to the next step, which is resining. You don't have to do this, but I would definitely recommend it because that paint is just gonna come right off if it's not sealed in there. Just place a generous amount on there. You don't want to wipe a whole lot, especially on the parts where you have the ink on there, because it will kind of smudge. So just put thick gobs on there and kind of move it around gently with your paintbrush. And then once those are cured, you're going to go ahead and start to string your beads. I've cut off a piece of string the size of my wrist, and then I'll place on my crimped bead, my bead cap cover, and then I will start putting on my beads, going from smallest to largest and back to smallest. You can cut off any excess string that you have left. Go ahead and place on your crimp bead, your bead cap cover there. And then of course, you'll place on your toggle and your clasp with a jump ring. And oh my gosh, you did it. I did it. We did it. Oh, thank you. I had a lot of fun making this, and I'm really surprised how it came out. I'm actually quite proud of it. And my husband thinks this is going to be the best video ever, so I hope it is. Well, you guys, this is the end of the video, and you know what? It is time to say thank you so much for watching. Bye!